I titled my memoirs, I Led 3 Lives. It's a good title and it was the truth. The first memory when my mother went to the train to pick my father up. And she came back, she left us with a relative, and she came back without my father. And we were sure disappointed. And from then on, life was going on just.
Schlaf sie mir schon Jankale, mein Scheiner. Die Jägerlach, die schwarzen Kämach zu. A Jingele, was hat schon alle Zeindala. Muss noch die Mame singen, ay Lulu. A Jingele, was hat schon alle Zeindala.
Well, let's start from the beginning. Your father and mother met in England. In London. So just remind me of how that came about.
How this came about? My aunt, her sister, her older sister, was living in London. She was married to a man who never stayed in one place long enough. They had a big family, a lot of children. And when my mother, she married a cousin, a first cousin. Turn that light up. She married the first cousin. And she never knew that he was so sick or whatever. 3 years after they were married, he died. And she was left with a baby girl, a widow. And apparently she was in touch with that sister. And that sister cared a lot for her. And she knew the conditions in Poland. So she gave her, made arrangements for her to come to London with the baby. And she was living in London, and she was working, probably sewing, because that's what she used to do. And somehow she met my father, and his wife died giving birth to the baby, and he had a baby girl, and they got together. And they got married.
Now, why did they move back?
And she was living in London for 9 years, speaking English perfect. The reason I know, because there was another man in our vicinity that he was from England, and he used to be a baker, I think they were. My mother went to buy matches for Pesach from him. And he spoke English, and I knew my mother was speaking English.
Now, why didn't they stay in England?
Because her husband, we called it, he had spilkes. He just, wherever he was, the grass was green on the other side. He was, I think, Hungarian born.
Not your father?
No, not my father, her husband. And he decided to go back, and they wound up in Vienna. They wound up in Vienna. My mother had the rest of the sisters in Lvov. So she decided to go to Lvov, and my father went with her. Of course, they went there.
Serce się z dala trudzi, szuka cię w dali. O miasto bez troski.
My father was a geologist, oil engineer. And when he came to Poland, there used to be a refinery right in our vicinity, about 10 minutes from our house. He got a job right there. He made good money. What I don't remember my father, but I know my mother told us, and our neighbors told us, that my father was a very, very good, generous man. They said before he came with the wages to the house, he was dishing out everybody a little bit because the people were so hungry and so poor. That's what people told me. He was such a very, very good man. I had a picture from him. He sent a picture from service in the uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And that card that I got, in the card, he asked about me. And I had the card. Alan has it in the album.
So where were you born?
In Lvov, Poland. December 14, 1940. I was the younger, the baby.
And your mother's name was?
Sarah.
And your father's name
My
was?
father's name was Bernard.
Bernard Lovner.
Lavner. I was the baby. I had two stepsisters, one from my father's side and one from my mother's side. I also had a sister older than I, 4 years old, older, and one 12 years old, but I did not remember her because she had an accident.
Now you told us that it was a mixed neighborhood. It was
A mix, yes. We
Okay.
had mixed. We had some neighbors were Gentiles. There was one woman. We never knew whether she was a widow, she was single. But she was sort of nice. She had more things, food-wise, than anybody else. And she used to help out. In fact, she used to give some people candles for Friday night to light candles. And she didn't have no children.
Now tell me about, you told us a little bit before about the way that people treated Jews and the way that, and how did you know what anti-Semitism was when you were growing up?
You had to be very careful with them, like with this woman. Then when I grew up, I used to write letters. She was illiterate. I used to write letters for her. She had some kind of a boyfriend. We never knew. But I used to write letters for her. I used to make her manicure. She paid me. I made a manicure. She liked me very much. She once said to my mother about me, she said, she'll never go hungry. But she was very friendly, yet what she did. We were supposedly very friendly. But my father was hiding out from the Russians. That's what my mother told us. That wasn't in my time that I remembered, but my mother was always telling us how much trust you have in people. But he was hiding out. She was Ukrainian. Her religion was not Catholic, but Ukrainian. And my father was hiding out not to be drafted by the Russians. And she pointed out where my father was, and they picked him up. That's when they picked him up, and they never saw him again. Anyway, how he...
By the Russians or the Austrians?
The Russian was picking him up, apparently, or the Austrian. How he wound up to be in the Austrian war, I don't know. But she pointed where he was hiding. And my mother never forgot it. She told us. In other words, look, she's so friendly, she's so good with the people. She even gave him candles for Shabbos. Then she went and showed where he was. And we never saw him. Anyway.
So your first memory, as you said, your father, where was your father?
He was in war.
Okay.
I never saw him. I never remember my father. But when I was growing up, a child, everybody had a father, and I called every man in the neighborhood, I called him father. I couldn't understand why I don't have a father.
But you knew he was.
But
you
then
knew he
when
was
I
at war.
grew up already, I knew that he was lost in the war. But supposedly someplace in Italy, supposedly. But my mother never knew exactly where, when it happened. When she went to the train to pick him up, under the assumption that he is coming. And that was it.
Okay.
And he was never found. So she wasn't qualified for widow pension. My mother did not get pension for my father until I was 14 years old. They couldn't find nothing that he was a person, that he was they didn't find, he was lost.
Right.
And my mother was trying to get pension, she didn't have no proof. That was really something very interesting. Somebody suggested, my father was born in Grodno, and that used to be under Russia. And when my father was in then he went to London somehow, we were found up in London, and then when they married, they came to Poland. He lost track of his whole family or whatever. But my mother used to tell us that his family must have had some property in Grodno, that they used to send my father part from the rental. But she still couldn't prove that he was, and she didn't have no connection with his family. So somebody suggested to hire a lawyer in Poland to get in touch with the lawyer in Grodno. So the lawyer in Grodno suggested that they should, in the synagogue, they should announce in synagogue that there was a man, his name was Bernard Lavner. He was born in Grodno. He left Grodno, he was already of age, and there is a widow left, a war widow, with 4 children, without any means. And they were announcing it in the synagogue for 3 consecutive weekends. The last weekend, 2 older men came and reported to the rabbi that they were at my father's breast. And the lawyer got to the birth certificate from the government, and that's when my mother started to get pension. And then she was left with 4 children. One had an accident. She died after she fell and had a brain concussion. And she was really struggling to make a living with us. She was sewing men's shirts. She was always trying to, my uncle had a horse and buggy and a little farm and a cow, their own milk, and they were distributing milk to private homes. When I was already maybe a kid of 5, 6 years old, I don't know, I was quite mature for my age or something, that I went with my mother, and when people were giving out the pictures, and she was filling up the pitcher, and I took the milk to the people's door, and that's what I remember just. And then I went to school and
Well, tell us what was your apartment like? You've told me a little bit about
a
it.
one bedroom and a kitchen. And that was on the first floor. And that was supposed to be in the conditions. That was a good apartment, a good location, and a big yard development, and a lot of buildings around. A big yard. On these premises, there was one man, he used to be, he was a horseman. He was putting horseshoes on horses right away in the end of the yard. He was there, and he was living there too. The funny part is my grandma. I had an old grandma, and she was widowed already. I don't remember a grandfather. My mother was one of 10 children. 6 sisters and 4 brothers. All of them were living in the vicinity of Poland, of Lvov. Some of them were in the village, but then they moved to Lvov. Except one moved away someplace and we got lost. We didn't know where he was. And Grandma was old. So she was with all those sisters, with every sister she was staying a week at a time, 2 weeks at a time. And we had a gate, a wooden gate, a fence like. When we went to pick Grandma up, this man was nasty. He put a lock. There was a gate to open a door, but he put a lock to divide the alley with the building. But we had little steps we made on the wooden thing. In order not to go too far around, a long way with Grandma, we used to help Grandma get on the fence, on those steps, and take her over to make a shortcut. That was a cute thing. Every week or 2 weeks, she was visiting with another daughter. That's all I remember about Grandma. There was a big, right on the border between Michelle and the city, manufacturer of Bachevsky liquor. There's still Bachevsky liquors in the world.
Huh.
And they used to make from oranges liquor. And they used to sell the orange peels. And we used to go and buy those orange peels.
For what?
Just to eat it.
Oh, the rinds, okay.
Yeah, the rind, the orange rind. I remember the first radio, Bachevsky, there was a whole, like a big, factory, Bachevsky, liquor. And the manager, the main manager, was a Jewish man. His name was Ex-Christ, a Jewish man, COO. I remember the first radio, when he had the radio, we had the kids, the youngsters. We came to that gate to listen to the radio. It was and of course we didn't have telephones. And we had outdoor facilities, not in the house. That was the time.
Was there running water?
What?
Was there water in the house?
No, we didn't have water. We had to go like across the street to carry water. No water, no electricity, no telephones. But to wash clothes, we had to carry a whole day water from the street to save water for the laundry.
Lern Kinderlach, lern mit der Freude, werden Aleph Beis. Glücklich ist ich, wo's kennt wie teure und us Aleph Beis.
And it came Christmas time, Christmas Eve. We had a glass door and a glass window. The glass window from the floor, from the steps. Christmas time, we were scared to death. They used to go singing carols to everybody's apartments and to get money. Natural. My mother was always ready to give him money. We were afraid. We were afraid. I had a neighbor next door to us. She used to wash. Her husband worked in a slaughterhouse. Drunk, alcoholic. When he came home Friday with the wages, there were no wages. He was drunk, terrible, and fighting her, terrible. She used to wash for my mother clothes. She used to help us. She also has a dog, and we like that dog. Jola was the dog's name. And one Friday, he came home. He was so drunk, and she escaped to our apartment. We were here, our door, her door. And she came to our apartment. My mother was scared to death. He came out to the hallway with an axe. He was going to kill her. And I was a little girl. I was standing there pulling on his pants. Punish Slobodski, punish her. Please, please don't hurt her. My mother was standing there shivering. She was hiding in our apartment. And I was pulling on his pants not to kill her. This is the way we were living. For Christmas, my mother cooked mekhale for her and cooked fish, gave, and we tried to be friendly, very friendly with them.
So, okay.
What else?
So tell us about...
It's a tough life.
Yeah. So tell us about school and how you did in school, and then as you grew up, you said you were always...
I was teaching other kids. I was giving lessons to other kids. And I was helping my sister when she got married. Things were very, very hard, very hard. I was helping her in the store. I was helping her. She didn't have enough money to pay her bills. I went to that neighbor and borrowed money from her. And then I went to another one and borrowed money there, except that mother needed money, and gave this woman. I don't know how I survived too. Well, they weren't well off anymore. Nobody was well off, but my mother was on pension already.
How did you decide to go to business college?
How? Because I wanted to learn. I was very good at math, and I wanted to learn something that was the easiest to go to work in an office. My older sister worked in an office. The one on my mother's side. The other one on my father's side worked in a winery in the factory. They were manufacturing. So this older one was in office. That's how I decided, well, you had to do something. So I went and worked in the office, not long, because then there was already a movement. When we were teenagers, we knew that it's so hard. People were going with boyfriends to get married. You couldn't find apartments. It was so hard. Life was so hard. To make a living and to find an apartment. When I knew already I want to go to Israel, so I figured I'll try to learn a trade. Because you can you have no language, you can do nothing. See, we didn't have a chance to learn Hebrew either. My mother knew, she tried to teach us. What time did she have? She was sewing until every night till midnight. And then next morning she had to go pedaling with that thing.
So, at what point, how did you know that you wanted to go to Israel? How was that?
How did I know?
Yeah.
Because the movement was going around. It just was going. The people, the young people, knew they have no future. If they have no money, they have no future. And also in Europe, class differences were making a big problem. If a boy was from a family that they were a little better off, and a girl didn't have family like a widow, mother was a widow.
No doubt.
What did we have? Nothing. It was always that class difference that they couldn't afford it. It just, and one was, I had a cousin. She used to go out with student, with the law student, with a medical student. And it was supposed to be they're getting married, they're getting engaged, they're getting married. His family was absolutely against it, and they broke up. And it broke her heart, but they broke up. And then she went with one boyfriend, and the family was quite rich. They were in lumber business, wholesale lumber. And he went to France to study medicine, but he was in love with her, was crazy in love with her. He used to send her his allowance to go to play, learn to play piano, to get to be able to fit into his group, to his family. And when it came to the point, he came back and he wanted to get married. The family just stopped. We're not going to support you. And that's it. And they broke up.
So now, how did you get involved with the movement to go to
The
Israel?
Israeli movement. Well, my friend, the one that I went to school with, she belonged to the organization.
What was her name?
Regina
And her
Rottenstrauch.
Right.
Yeah. And I got very, very friendly with her. The day we went to school together, we met, and she was living in the city, in the heart of the city. The school was in the city, and I was living in it. So most of the time we were hanging out with her. And I used to go. They were a big family, 9 children. And her older sister, she was just 2 years older than my friend. And she was also thinking of going to Israel. She didn't belong to an organization, but she wanted to go. She met a fella, and
Was that Doja?
Doja had her boyfriend. His father has a store, a wine store. He was selling wine, and her boyfriend used to work in that store. And they also wanted to go to Israel. So since her father, her family was well-to-do, and she was planning to go to Israel, and he didn't see the store, the business was going very bad anymore. So her father agreed, and he gave her 1,200 pounds, equal to $5, 5 zlotys a pound, English money. And that time they allowed to come to Israel capitals. They considered capitals. So she went to Israel with him. They got married just, no big deal, no big wedding. And she went to Israel.
What year was that?
That was in 1934.
Okay.
She went a year before I did. And she promised me that she will try to to help me come. He had a brother. Her husband had a brother in Israel who lived in Israel. He was in Israel years and years. So, and he was single. So she thought maybe she'll talk to his brother to come from, he was much older than I. And as I say, in the organization, my mother would not allow me to belong to the organization. You had to go to meetings, and if you want to earn points, you had to do certain things. You had to go work on a farm, things like that.
And you
So,
needed
Hakshara they called. You had to go on a Hakshara and earn points.
and those points, with a certain number of points, you could go to Israel.
Then they let you, then you get, England assigned so many, allowed so many people come in a year. So under those points, they had to gather whoever it was deserving, more deserving. Now your grandfather belonged to an organization, Agudat Israel. He belonged. He was in the leading group. He didn't have to go to the Hashara. Since he was in the leading group of that organization, he was able to go. And he went to Israel about 8-9 months before I went. He was there already. See, it was easier for men to get there than for women. And since I wanted to go in the worst way, so somebody suggested there was a family that had 6 children. The 7th child was born and died at birth, or after birth. So they suggested that I should get a certificate, a birth certificate, as one of their child. I made it, cost me a lot of money, but things worked out that the family didn't go, so I didn't go. Then my friend really was working on it, and she found out that a group of boys are going to Europe to bring girls, because there was a big shortage of girls in Israel. And a lot of boys, when they were paying them, the girls were paying them the round trip to come and bring them to Israel. They had fictitious marriages, just written out on the paper. And times were so bad that the boys were glad they didn't have work. They were hungry. They were glad to get to go back to Poland, to their hometown where they were, and some brought their own relatives that way. And this fella just got together with the others, but he didn't want to get tied up to nothing. He just wanted to visit Poland. He wasn't hungry. He was well off. He was Romanian.
What was his name?
Dennis. D-I-N-I-S. It's spelled different. And he was a drywall installer and the construction in Israel. And that was a very good paying job. It was a skill. And he's been in Israel for a long time. He came with the first Aliyah probably. So when all those fellas in Poland, in the city, when they got together, and my friend's brother-in-law, he had family there, a sister, and I got friendly with his family too. So that's how I got to meet him, and he got that fella. Together I was arranging tickets for opera for them. I was arranging to take him sightseeing. So we were talking about that. That my friend brother-in-law mentioned to him, hey, there's a girl. Why, try meet her, see, maybe you like. to take her. And that's how we got together, and he agreed to take me.
So he agreed to have a fictitious marriage and take
Oh
you.
yeah, we went up
take
to
you
Rabbah.
Israel.
But before, when I told my mother that what happened, that I have this fella, he wants to take me, I was a ward of the court because I was an orphan. So the court I was a ward of the court. So my mother had to go to court to release me. And I wasn't 21 yet. My mother was very much against my going. So my older sister went.
Why was she against your going?
Because I was the baby. And she figured I'm the youngest. She has a nice apartment. Considering in the conditions that we were living, everybody was living. She figures I'm the youngest. I could have the apartment. She was a widow. And she has a sewing machine. That was so true, so. So she figured she'll spend her life with me because I'm the youngest. So here, I was going to Israel. So my sister went with her to court. And so they agreed. I was very much afraid that my mother would break down and wouldn't let me, but she let me. One thing she did enough saved up. She was very thrifty. She would save that, but she wouldn't give me money for the trip. So she figured, well, I don't have money, I don't go. But with me it was good because this fella agreed to take me just to get paid one way after he gave me the divorce. If we decide to divorce.
And how long did you have to stay
2
married?
hours, 2 years you have to wait to get a divorce. Because they had occurrences that one side tried to get away with some, different things. So this is the way we made up the thing. And I didn't have money to go. So there was a fella, he liked me. And I told him about it. He was a baker, they had a bakery, their own bakery. And I told him about it. He lended me the money. And when I came to Israel, my friend's sister, she had money, She was a capitalist. She put all that money in the bank. So she let me have the money to send back to this fellow.
And did you get married in Romania or in Poland?
No, in Poland, Lvov. We went up to a rabbi and he wrote, nobody was there, just the rabbi and the boy and I. And that was it.
Ich will bei euch a Kasche fragen, sucht mir wer es kennt, mit welcher Taille.
Now, when you went to Israel, how did you get there? You took a
How
boat.
did I get there? I get trained to Romania, and in Romania I met this fella, and he introduced me to his sister. And then from Romania we came to Israel.
Okay, so now you're in Romania.
In Romania we were, and the sister was very nice. We had to spend, I think, 2 days in Romania until we found, but there was a camp that we had to stay over in the camp to wait for the next boat to go to Israel. Well, he stayed with his sister, but I stayed in the camp. And we came to Israel.
when you arrived in Haifa, you stayed with Doja?
I went straight to Doja,
and
I
that's when you
stayed
met
with her.
and that's when you met Grandpa?
That's where he was there. He was friendly with them. He knew them from Poland. And I met him there, and from then on, he was always around. Whatever I was doing, wherever I was going, he was there.
So just tell us about your first time in Israel. What did you think when you first got to Israel? Was it what you expected?
I was very happy in Israel, very happy. My friend was very good to me. We stayed in her house together. We had one room and kitchen privileges, just a burner. But we were very happy there to her. And right away I started doing sewing. What I knew, what I have to do to make a living. I couldn't sponge on her. And when I went and bought, her husband's uncle was married to an Israeli woman. She was Syrian or whatever, a Jewish woman. And her son-in-law was selling sewing machines. He was a sales something. So he sold me a sewing machine on payments as a singer. And we started, and my friend started learning with me. I was sewing already. But before I went to Israel, I went to learn how to sew. And that's how I got to be sewing. We put it before on this, and we did. So I was sewing, and for a living we were doing. We used to go to people's house for the day, and one day I made a dress for them. They paid me for a day, like equal to, let's say, 30 pounds a day. That was good living. And they gave me lunch and all, one day. If they had more doing, they kept me for 2 days. And this is the way I was making a living and paying off the sewing machine and trying, but I had to try to pay back my friends the money that I had to pay back my husband.
Right.
For one trip before we divorced.
And you immediately met Grandpa. You knew immediately that he liked you.
Well, you feel he likes me, but I did go on dates, other places, but every time I came back, he was there. He was always there.
Did he ever ask you about the dates?
Well, we kept, he used to have a saying, before a person gets married, a person should decide if it would come to a divorce, what kind of person it would be. Something like that. He was, anyway, he was learned, he belonged to a very religious group. Very religious group. There was the girls, by Bet Yaakov, the girls. And he was the Agudat Israel. They all a bunch of very religious group. The girls would not shake hands with boys. But we got very friendly. He was friendly with them. I used to call them the nunnery. We go into the nunnery. But somehow they accepted me, and we were just, wherever there was, we were the life of the party together, and we tried to get the other people together, and we had a lot of fun. And they were very nice with me, of course. There was one girl, she was beautiful. She was a very religious girl, very beautiful. And the group was really wanted to match them up. Grandpa with her. Why he didn't take with her, I don't know. Sylvia Helzerad, that's her name. Well, anyway.
Were you jealous?
What?
Were you jealous?
Jealous? No, I wasn't jealous. I figured that would win a good match. But he didn't want it. But they accepted me. Well, anyway.
Now, how would you characterize Grandpa? I mean, meeting him for the first time, what kind of a person was he? What was he like?
He was from the same city as I was. He was living in the city, and I was living in the suburbs. When I worked in an office, his father was sort of in financial business. And I found in the books in my office that my boss owed money to his father, Kruger. I found Kruger, there was a debt. And Grandpa came once to the office to collect. And it's just like a dream, I remember too. But when I pay attention, I know, he talked to me about it, and I took care of it. I told him I'll take care of it, tell my boss about it. And that was the only one time that I knew Kruger, the name. When I came to Israel, I saw Kruger again.
So what did you think of Grandpa the first time? I mean, getting to know him. What kind of a man was he, other than religious?
Who?
Grandpa.
Grandpa didn't act so religious when it came to me. When I saw him first, he was wearing a dark hat. Grandpa changed completely. I didn't. I was that way. Always. He changed. He tolerated. He changed. But while he was there, of course, over there, look, we observe Shabbat. It just, he was very nice with them, and they used to say, one of his friends, later he was mayor in Haifa, his friend. But we were very close together. He said, dear God, if she would have only be a little more religious. But I didn't do nothing to make, feel like I do something against the religion. What was there to do? There's no riding on Shabbos, no going to non-kosher restaurant. Everything was kosher. So there was no problem, but I just didn't go along with it, But nevertheless, they accepted me,
And so once you were over your 2 years and you got a divorce from your husband, your fake husband, what happened with Grandpa?
But every time I went to learn Hebrew at night, I used to go to a place where they had gathering people to come to learn Hebrew. And we had singing there, and every time when I came out after finish, Grandpa was waiting for me. And if I had a date with somebody else, Grandpa was right there when I came back. He was always there. He used to, if I went to go to work for the day to people's house, when I finished, he was there. Oh, he was right there. In fact, the rumor was going around. It was lucky that Grandpa was not a Kohen. You know what a Kohen means? The Jewish sector, the Jewish men are divided into three sects. The Kohen is the elite. The Levi, you are Levi because your grandfather was a Levi, is second. And the Israel is the low class. But a Kohen is not allowed to marry a woman if it has been divorced. See? Here, I was a divorced woman. So they said, thank God, he is not a coin. And the boys, the group of boys, they were, before we got a divorce, a lot of times they had problems with divorce. They asked extra money, so the boys said, he better give you a divorce. If not, we'll take care of him. But he was very nice about it. He gave me a divorce, I gave him the money. We parted, very good friends, and that's it. No, he was nice. I was lucky. I was lucky. Honey, I keep saying all the time I was lucky. Then, about 2 years later, there was a little fruit store right on the same street across from us. And this man and a woman was running that little fruit store. And the woman decided to go visit back Poland, visit her family. And the man was alone, left alone. It was hard for him to run the store. And he said to me, how about joining me? How about buying in, become my partner? He said, 15 pounds. Pay me 15 pounds for the inventory. And I kind of liked it. I liked it better than being and going different places to sew in their houses. I like to be in business. So I went and I bought in with him and I worked with him in that store. Just about a month. That was very bad times in Israel. Then a month later he said, you know what? I want to go back to Poland to meet my wife. And you have a boyfriend, he said, why don't you get him in with you? That time it was very hard to get work. It was very hard on Grandpa to find work, a day's work. They gave, the situation was so bad that if they had work, they gave a family man, they gave 3 days. A single man, they gave 1 day or sometimes nothing. So it was very hard. Then when I suggested to Grandpa, we were already going steady. So he said, he went, he bought out the man, gave him another 15 pounds, and we went together. And we were together for a year, for a whole year in that store. And we made money, we made money.
השמש מלהטת, ובעמק עוד נוצץ הקר. אנו אוהבים אותך מולדת, בשמחה, בשיר ובעמל, ממורדות אלמנון עד ים המלח.
From the whole family, everybody was there, and I was lucky and I got out. And we came to Israel, and we made money. And we helped people, we helped so many people. Because of that business that we got, we helped so many people. I can't begin to tell you how bad things were. There was a friend, and he came to Israel, he didn't have a trade. He was a spoiled boy. He tried everything under the sun. Whatever he tried, it didn't work for him. Once he tried to get your grandfather into business with him, to buy a truck and do something. He needed 50 pounds. So Grandpa gave him 50 pounds. Never saw the 50 pounds. She was living in how did people live in a one room like that? If they had 2 rooms, they rented 1 room out. So she was living in that 1 room on the street where we had the store. And she kept on credit. She didn't have money to pay for the fruit and vegetables. So she built up some. She became pregnant. She was going to have a baby. She owed rent. She couldn't find another apartment. And we knew about it. We were friends. So we went and found an apartment for her. And Grandpa came to the store and I said, listen, I found an apartment for her and we have to pay the rent for her. And he looks at me. After we lost so much money with him, more, I cried. I said, but she's going to have a baby. Where is she going to be? And here she owes money. Middle of the night, she ran out from the apartment that she was living there. And we got her another apartment. And she went and had the baby. We paid it to her. And we helped so many people. I just can't begin. It was good. It was good. I loved Israel. I loved Israel. We were feeding everybody. We had everything. We took in the potatoes at night. We made latkes and feed the table. We had fruit and vegetables, and we helped everybody. It was very nice. We had enough money to buy our apartment. But I said, if we're getting married, we've got to go home and see the family. Otherwise, I'm not going to America. I'm not getting married. Go if you want. And we agreed. I let him take care of the money. I didn't care, but whatever I wanted, I got anyway. There's so much I can begin to tell you.
But where did the romance come from?
What?
The first time you started dating.
Well, he was right there. There was the day I came, he was there, and he was always there. And when we were together already, we knew that he proposed that we're going to get married. But when he said, we're going to get married, I said, and he was talking about going to America. Because when we were in the store, there were terror acts every day. For fruit and vegetables to go, he had to go to the market to buy. When he went to the market to buy, it was very dangerous because mostly it was Arab markets mixed. And every day they were killing, every day. They call it muraot. Every day there were occurrences with killings.
How did you feel? Did you want to stay in Israel or leave?
I wanted Israel very badly. In fact, I told them, remember, you're taking me away from Israel. I was getting along swell. We had a lot of friends. I loved it. I just loved it. Well, anyway, he promised that if he'll come to America and he bring his family, then we may go back. But we never went back. Anyway, so I told him, we got married in Israel.
And what year did you get married?
It was
38.
July 1st, 1938,
Okay.
in Israel. Before that, we had to make our papers. So the papers we made up, because if we make out papers to go to America, we had to make it that we married. So we made it in December. Went to a rabbi and wrote out all the particulars, actually to get married, we went, it was a Friday noon, we went to the rabbi in a Klit in Israel. Took a bus, took our friends on the bus. One of my aunts, my mother's sister, was living there, and her husband. So my aunt came with us, and the rabbi, the same rabbi that wrote up the thing. So we got married Friday noon, outside in the rabbi's yard. And then our friends made a nice dinner for us, nice reception. And that was the wedding party. That was in a little apartment. And I went to stay with my girls, and he went to stay with his friend. But one night, his friend left his apartment to give us the one. No, that was after we got married that day, that night. The friend let me have. He went away, and I stayed with his grandpa that night. Next night, I came. I was living with 3 girls, 2 girls, in one room like that, 3 hide beds. So the next day, I came to stay in my own house because we knew we were going away to America, so we didn't get an apartment.
Right.
So I stayed with the girls, and he stayed with his boys. And then we left for Poland. I told him, I am not going to get married I'm not going to Israel, to America, if we cannot go around to see the family first. And we went. It was very nice because we had enough of our own money, enough money to go on the trip. In fact, when we came to Poland, times are very bad.
When did you?
1938.
What time of year?
Well, it was after July 15, we went to Poland.
And did you stop anywhere on your way?
We stayed, yes, we stopped in Copenhagen, we stopped in Turkey, we made a nice trip. But then I stayed in his family's, in his parents' house. They had a bigger apartment. And my mother didn't like the idea, but I told her, listen, after all, it's in-laws. You have to make... They were very, very religious. And here, I was not coming from a religious. In Europe, everybody was traditional, everybody. But not like they were. So my mother, she understood. Maybe she didn't like the idea, but she realized that after all, in-laws, those were times in Europe that a girl, a poor girl, wanted to marry. They had to have a trousseau. And my mother didn't have trousseau for me. And they thought that Grandpa, he was so educated, he was so learned, that he could marry somebody with money, Here, he married just a poor girl. Well, anyway, they settled, they didn't begrudge it. But his father was so religious that they came to the train when we arrived. He wouldn't shake hands with me because that's not kosher. But after I left already, I was teasing him a lot. He got to like me. He was good looking. He used to have a smiling face and those dark eyes. He sort of looked like a friendly person. His mother was a little, I don't know. The night before I left for Israel, I was walking in the street with my friend and her brother, and we met a man in the street, and that friend, brother, knew this man. And he said to him, our name was Krug. His name was Krug, they changed it. And he said, Mr. Krug, this girl is going to Israel tomorrow. So his father said, yeah, my son said, you will see my son there probably. Well, I said, maybe. So he said, I said, what do you want me to tell him? He said, please tell him, send him the money to come back. Things were worse in Israel that time. Even financially in Poland was a little better than in Israel.
And this was Grandpa's father.
Grandpa's father. So I said to him, well, I'll tell him what you want me to tell him, but if he'll ask me, I'll tell him my opinion. And to me it was wild. Here, a person is spending so much trouble to get to Israel, he wants to bring him back. It was a sin. So, natural. Well, when we came back married, he told me that when he came home that night, he told his wife that he sent regards for his son with the girl. They used to call him Shulimche. He was the oldest. So she said, oh, what did you tell him? He said, I told her to tell Shulimche that we'll send him money to come back. But you know what? She said, I think because of her he wouldn't come back. I never knew about it, but when we came married, he told me about it. His father was, he had such a, lively eyes like you. He was such a lively person. He was not very religious, very, very religious. They didn't believe in Israel. They were the Belzer cult, Belzer Siddim. You heard of that?
Yeah.
And they were against Israel, that we really feel that we made those Belzer people guilty because they really interfered with a lot of people not going to Israel. They thought Israel is not kosher enough for them. There's free love, girls are living with boys, things like that. So they were really interfering a lot. And when they found out that your grandfather, his father, found out that he tries to be in the Zionist organization, he is very busy, very involved with it. He was very much against him. He was very much against him. But seems like your grandfather didn't heed to it and he just left.
What was his mother like?
Well, his mother was like a mother-in-law, not like I am a mother-in-law. But anyway, when we left, I was teasing him so much that we left. He did shake hands with me already, that he really got. And we had quite a nice bundle of money. And we were in the store, everything, we didn't pay taxes that time. Whatever you made, it was cash. And the whole group of people, they were so hungry. But we had fruit and vegetables in the store. And we were feeding the whole bunch of people. But we saved that money. So when we came, and he saw how his family was really, he left most of our money there. I didn't bother, I didn't mind it.
His family was not doing well.
I came from Israel, in Israel, you don't dress so well. I did make a nice outfit for myself when I got married. So she made me a coat, and she put me a hat, we're going to America. But everything else we left with Sal's family. And Lvov is a beautiful city, a beautiful city. So when we went, I knew the city. So So I was going places, to see the places, to show the people who came from different cities, visit the same time as this Dean is my ex-husband. So we took them together and we went those places. You couldn't go places. There were restrictions. The Jews couldn't go there. And it was just very, very tedious. The family was so afraid. When we were going out, we felt so free. We were so free. We were no more Polish citizens. So we were free. But the family was so worried that we could get in trouble. Because, you know, I crossed the street. A cop stopped me. What's the matter? Why, you're not supposed to... I said, since when did that happen? Well, I say, I don't know. I'm not a citizen, I don't know. He let me go. I mean, it was awful. It was so hard. We used to, we have a beautiful theater, a building, a really architecture, the building in the middle of the city, the great theater. So I got tickets for them for operas, heavy opera, Carmen and Tosca, and I took those boys, well, they paid their way, but I arranged for them, they wanted to go places. But the family was so scared. By the time they saw us in the house, we were there 5 weeks. We would have stayed longer, but then we heard already the wars.
And in Poland, I mean, what was the sense? Did people know that? Did people sense that a war was coming?
My mother said when we were, you know, a lot of people couldn't believe it. When Grandpa went to see his friends, you know, his old friends, because his father, there was a time that he was in financial business, you know, he went to see those friends and talked with them. Some people were pretty rich too. In 1938, he said to them, why do you sit in Poland? But it was very hard to leave Poland. They wouldn't let you. Poland wouldn't let you out. You had to go by crook, like I went to get a certificate. And, you know, but those people were doing very well. And they say, no, there are too many minorities live in Poland. No, that couldn't happen in Poland. And as it is, everybody perished. And my mother cried. When I was leaving, she cried. She says, my kids, she says, I'll never see you again. We're going to have a war.
In 1938, November, you left, you got on the boat?
Yom Kippur, we were on the boat. When we were coming on the boat, the warships were already in the ocean. And it just happened to the year. They invaded Poland, to the year. It was really bad. We never heard, from my family, we never heard nothing.